nice session and time cut us short, where we had Mingo, program coordinator from the Danish Refugee Council, and Jonas Vesea from the Danish Church Aid, who kicked the session off by giving us their experience and the work they're doing, especially in the conflict areas where they're working, and what are the success stories and lessons they've learned in what has been happening. And after this kickoff, we had a lot of ideas discussing the criteria, why they choose these projects and why they go in these areas, how do they evaluate these projects, and do they ever consider the diaspora as being part of the solution? And if they do, there are some examples which have been done. And then we also wanted to see, have they considered the causes of these problems, because it seemed to most of us that these were solutions to a problem whose causes are not known. So that means that most of these aid companies could be just creating jobs for themselves. So we wanted to know if somebody has looked at the causes so that we have maybe in future no need for such aid programs. And I think that's most of the questions. And then there were some answers and discussions about that, which Agnes could take over.
Well, I came in the middle, and they were having some of the main concerns concern trust and transparency, and there were the question whether there had been any studies done in terms of conflicts that occur and what causes it. There were answers in terms of diversity, in terms of jobs within Denmark, and what criteria that are used to select candidates, and how the diaspora can be involved in that. And we also noted that there were gaps in terms of loyalties as far as diaspora were concerned, and that should be addressed. But on the other hand, the diaspora should also try and activate the different organizations in terms of dealing with it. Of course, we also learned that we have advisory boards that do a lot of strategizing. There is a lot of decentralized decision making, and that they try as much as possible to work on local people in this. But the most important thing I think we take from there is that in terms of sustainability, in terms of aid, we want to get that phased out. That was the main point.
So it was mainly a point that we should try to look at grants and funds going to these conflict countries, not as a solution which would create sustainable jobs. Because when you look at the countries, for example, Somalia and Afghanistan, they're getting too much aid at the moment. And what happens, it creates this tendency in the people to expect that this will be the trend. They get this money and they don't develop this entrepreneurial spirit of starting small. They get a lot of grants and they start big, and after a few years, the grant goes away, the program fades, and the conflicts resume as it should be. So Mingo was of the view that as the diaspora, it would be our challenge to try to see that we don't also look so much for grants and funding if we are thinking about projects. We try to look at the funds which we could raise ourselves, because starting small but ensuring that we can sustain development, that is, it will take more time, but it means that we get more sustainable jobs, and in the end this solves conflicts. And she was also saying that the root causes, we discussed the root causes of these problems is the culture within the African society, countries, continent as a whole, because we look at the conflicts which exist from West Africa, Central Africa, in the middle, and you see that there are some trends which are similar, because there's betrayal of people who try to make transformational changes. That's why we see that revolutionaries get killed, the Sankaras, the Mumbas, the Kabilas, they all get killed because they're betrayed by our people. And this culture of mistrust and betrayal creates this the problem of causing conflicts. And before it's addressed, we will continue being in the same form. And then we are called upon as the diasporas. I don't know, Mingo area, there is a term she used, I think it's challenge of the collective representation or responsibility. That we need, exactly, was that the term you used?
The challenge of collective action, yeah.
Yeah, challenge of collective action. That at least we should take that from here. That we need to come up and create a culture of trust and transparency within each other, because this will help in resolving the conflicts which exist. For example, in Kenya, where people have to fight ethnicities because people don't trust each other. If we take away this kind of history, which incidentally was caused by interruption of maybe the colonial powers, but we need to get away from there and create a new culture from our area. How many minutes do we have?
One.
All right. Well, it's also in terms of details. I mean, in terms of institutional transparency, which I thought was very important, and the fact of involving people, where you can have innovative methods of improving on these things. They have SMS feedback for accountability, for example, where the people are able to communicate to the people that are actually doing what they're doing, and building democracy. This is one of the ways to do it, and strengthening the citizenship, knowing they're part of owning the problem, and that they can do something about it. This was some of the details that I thought were very important in this transparency and trust that came on.
Okay, thank you very much.